Romances have always been one of my favorite genres. It's definitely a comfort zone, and actually, it's the genre that got me into reading. So, I thought it'd be a good idea to only read romances for a vlog, and to make things more fun, we're gonna read new release romances, so let's just get into it. Good morning. I have my iced coffee, so let's start this reading vlog. The first book we're gonna read is Not Another Love Song by Julie Soto. I am actually internally screaming that I have this book right now in my hands because this book isn't publicly released until July 16th, and today is June 25th, so there is a couple more weeks until this book comes out. I was actually so lucky, and I was sent an early finished copy of this book by the publisher, so thank you, Hachette, for sending me this book because I am so excited to read it. I'm gonna be honest, I haven't read a book by Julie Soto yet. This would be my first, but when I heard about this book, I was like, this book is such a cute romance. I need to have it. This one is Arrivals to Lovers, and it follows two musicians. I don't know what it is about having some kind of talent, but I tend to enjoy romances where the main characters are either athletes, musicians, or artists. I just soak up all of those stories. Also, I love this cover. It's stunning. Anyway, I'm so excited to read this book, so let's just get into it.
You show up at my door with some coffee and croissants. Went to my favorite store, cause you could tell it's what I want. I can't imagine more. It's been a dream and far beyond. Well, so then what am I so nervous for? Cause when it's good, just really good, then it should be too good. I know that there must be a catch, just waiting around for the record to scratch. But then you go again when you say I dream about you daily, and your face, it's a painting in the Louvre, baby. All your words like the screenplay in a movie storyline, but I get scared to.
I'm now 76 pages into Not Another Love Song, and I am enjoying it a lot. Our main characters are Gwen and Xander, and Gwen is a very talented violin player, and I would kind of describe her as an introvert because she's quiet, she likes to blend in, and when she plays her violin, she's not very expressive. She's been playing for this orchestra called Manhattan Pops for about 4 years now. She started there after she graduated from high school and has been working her way up ever since. And then we have Xander, who's arrogant only because he knows he's talented. He has accomplished a lot of things and has had a ton of opportunities for only being 26. And he now plays the cello for this very popular band, and he also happens to play in the same orchestra as Gwen. But being his arrogant self, he didn't even notice that Gwen and him played in the same orchestra. So they meet for the first time at this wedding, where Gwen was hired to play in the ceremony and Xander was the man of honor. Gwen went into this wedding fully prepared to play the violin, but it just so happens that the wedding planner made a mistake because she was expecting a cello, and she really wanted a cello, so she asked Gwen if she could play it if they brought her a cello. So eventually Gwen said yes, only because she needed the money, and she learned how to play the cello a little bit when she was younger. But it turns out the cello they found for her to use actually belongs to Xander. And after hearing her play in the ceremony, he tells Gwen that her playing wasn't good and she was off. And he was just being a complete jerk because he knew that Gwen didn't specialize in the cello. And the audience didn't even have a clue that she was off. But later on, we find out that the current first chair of the orchestra is retiring, and her replacement is Gwen and not Xander. And of course, he's furious because he has been working his entire life for this spot. I don't love Xander right now, and he's kind of getting on my nerves because he's acting like a child. From what I know about his character so far, he can recognize talent, but he can't admit they're talented when he feels threatened by them. So he criticizes and belittles them only to make himself feel better. He really is just a bully right now. But I am interested in seeing how this romance develops and how his hostility transforms into love, because the hatred is thick right now.
Every song is a memory of the way that we used to be, and the words are coming back to me. Now this room's so empty, just a space where we used to be.
Hello friends, it is a new day. I've made it a little bit further into this book. I'm about 185 pages into the story, and I'm actually kind of intrigued by the format of this book because it's written in the third person, but most of the chapters are from Gwen's perspective, and then we get a couple in Xander's perspective. His chapters are generally short, but we do get them, which I really like. But I almost wish his chapters would be longer so we get a full understanding of his character instead of just bits and pieces. Something I really like about this book so far is how realistic it feels. I was never a musician, but I did grow up a dancer, and I would say most art forms are actually quite similar in terms of lifestyle, challenges you encounter, and the choices you have to make along the way. So I find that I'm really able to connect with Gwen and understand some of her thoughts and feelings. And I find that I can also sometimes really understand where Xander is coming from, which is actually surprising to me because he's a complete jerk, and I'm someone who believes that there's always a way to approach things and not be rude about it. But getting to read his chapters, I can see why he is the way he is. And coming from an arts background myself, I know there are people out there just like him no matter what art form you do. So it's not only the story that feels real, but the characters also feel like real people as well. And I definitely think that's a really, really nice touch to the book. I'm also really enjoying some of the dialogue between Gwen and Xander. There have been a couple of times where Xander would say something and Gwen would laugh, and I would find myself smiling and laughing too. I wouldn't really call the conversation between the two of them good banter, but there are very subtle jokes inserted into their dialogue and the writing, and I really, really like that. One of my favorite things about reading romances is just how they make me feel. Like if they can make me giggle, smile, and laugh, it's automatically a good story to me. Anyways, those are all the updates I have for you guys right now. I'm going to continue reading this book, and I'll see you guys in a little bit for my next update. Hello friends, it is a new day. I've read a little bit more of this book. I have like 80 pages left to read, but I think I'm becoming obsessed with this book. I'm at the point where I'm so invested in the story that I'm just soaking up every single word, and I'm really living in the present, if you know what I mean. Like, I'm not trying to predict what's gonna happen. Usually I find that with romances, if you read them enough, you can sort of figure out the ending, or if I'm not really enjoying the book, my brain will naturally just try to guess the ending. But again, with this book, I'm living in the moment and letting the story play out on its own. I definitely think I'm gonna give this book a high rating. It's not quite a 5-star read for me, and I'll elaborate more on this when I'm done reading the book, but right now this book is at least giving a 4-star feel. I'm also really liking the music aspect of this book. I never thought I'd be interested in the music world, and actually I played a little bit of piano when I was younger, but then I quit that because I didn't enjoy it, and I started doing dance instead because I love that so much more. But reading this book is making me wish that I didn't quit music, and I honestly wish I can play an instrument right now. Anyway, like I said earlier, I have like 80 pages left of this book, so let's just finish it. There's this line that's everything to me. Listen to this. It's about a cello who fell in love with a violin. Oh, it's so cute. I just finished Not Another Love Song, and I absolutely loved it. It had me laughing, smiling, and sometimes tearing up because it was just so good. This book was actually a page turner for me because I was enjoying it so much. I really like how Julie Soto wrote the characters because they felt like real people to me, and it made me really care about them. Gwen and Xander had my entire heart. I love them both as people individually, but I also adored the romance between the two of them. The only thing that bothered me a little bit was the initial attraction. I think it was fine on Gwen's side, it felt natural, but it was a little weird for me on Xander's part because it felt like he was attracted to Gwen's music first, and because of that, he was automatically attracted to her as a person without even getting to know her first. So that just sat a little bit weird with me. But other than that, when they were actually together, the romance was so cute, and I love them together so much. They just make each other better people, and that is honestly what a good, healthy relationship is, in my opinion. I think I'm gonna give this book 4.25 stars. Let's move on to the next book though, and I think I'm gonna read Mistakes We Made by Hannah Brown. I believe this book was released a couple months ago, and I actually haven't heard that much about it, so I'm actually kind of excited to go into this book blind to see what I think about it. Let's just get into it.
Reaching for a North Star, waiting just to wake up from this nightmare where you could be right back in my arms, dancing to the limbo.
Hi friends, so I am now on page 132. From what I know so far of this book, it is a second chance romance, and I would also say it's a forced proximity romance about Emma and Finn. And these two have always been a series of almost, and what I mean by that is that they almost dated in high school, they almost hooked up after college, and they almost took things too far one night. And this series of almost did some damage because now they can't stand each other. But this week, one of their mutuals is getting married, so they kind of have to tolerate each other for the sake of their friend. However, 2 days before the wedding, their friend Sybil, who is the bride, she goes missing, so Emma and Finn have to work together to salvage someone else's happily ever after. When I read the first few chapters of this book, it just felt like a rom-com. I'm not sure if this book will ever be adapted into a movie, but I can definitely see it as one. It just feels like a lighthearted read, and it also feels like a summery read too. Like, it's a perfect book to read during this time of year. But I don't really like her main character, Emma. Almost everything that comes out of her mouth is passive-aggressive anger, and it's kind of annoying me. I mean, I get it. If I had a series of almost with a guy, I'd be pissed because it would have felt like I wasted so much time over the years pining over a guy when it was never gonna go anywhere. So I can imagine why Emma would feel angry, but I also feel like when enough time passes, you just gotta move on with your life and let the past go. For me, character development is really important in helping me determine whether or not I like a book. So far, I'm not really loving this book, but I also don't hate it. I'm just kind of indifferent about it. It's not a bad book, but it just doesn't feel like one of my 5-star reads. Maybe my thoughts and opinions will change the further I get into this book, so let's just keep reading. Hi friends, it's now a few days later and I'm on page 236 of this book, and I just found out that Hannah Brown is a TV personality. She was on The Bachelorette and Dancing with the Stars, and that's really interesting to me because she actually made one of the side characters a TV personality too. So I find it interesting that she put a little bit of herself into the story. I just love seeing Easter eggs like this in the book because it tells us a little bit about the author without actually telling us, you know? Also, this book mainly takes place in the present day, but we get flashback chapters called Mistakes, and these chapters usually unravel the history between Emma and Finn. I'm actually really enjoying these flashback chapters because it lets us get to know our main characters a little bit better, and we get to see how Emma and Finn have had their series of almost. But we also get flashback moments in the present day, and these usually have nothing to do with Finn. It would mainly be about her personal life, like her friends and family. Basically, Emma would be doing something and it would sometimes remind her of something that happened to her in the past, and then of course she would tell us a little bit about the situation. And I personally don't like how these flashbacks were integrated into the story because it just feels so random and out of place, and then sometimes it makes me confused. I usually like flashback scenes in romances, but I wish this book was formatted better so that we alternate between past and present every chapter. Anyway though, I have about like 100 pages left of this book to read, so I'm gonna try to finish it in the next little bit. Hello friends, it's the next day. I come with new hair. I just got it cut and dyed. I got a balayage. I've got some light brown pieces in my hair now with the black. I guess you can say this is my 2024 summer look. But anyways, yesterday I finished Mistakes We Made by Hannah Brown. I liked how this book had a rom-com feel to it. It was definitely a nice light-hearted read for the summer. I personally enjoyed this book more than I thought I would. I'm actually usually not a fan of romances that center around a wedding because I find that more often than not when a romance revolves around a wedding, more side characters are introduced and then we get too much backstory of the side characters. And with romances, I prefer the story to be centered around our two main love interests. I'm okay with getting to know our side characters a little bit, but I don't want to know too much about them that it takes the focus off our main characters. And with this book, I feel like Emma's friends played a very present role in the story. And according to what I just said, I don't usually love that. But with this book, I found that it was a little bit more bearable than other romances I've read with weddings in them. But I still just wish the book was mainly focused on Emma and Finn. I also didn't love the direction of the story. We spent a lot of time going through these hurdles to figure out a problem, but in the end, we never got the answers we were looking for. The ending was also a bit of a disappointment because it just felt way too rushed. It really just felt like they just wanted to wrap up the story quickly. It wasn't a very smooth and seamless ending. I also didn't love Emma's inner monologue. She was constantly justifying things to herself, and it really started to bother me towards the end of the book. I feel like I'm saying a lot of negative things about this book. It wasn't a bad read, but it was definitely not one of my favorite romances I've read. There's like a 50-50 chance I will recommend this book, and that's why I'm giving this book 3 stars. Anyway though, I think I'm gonna end the video here. In total, we read 2 books. We read Not Another Love Song, and then we also read Mistakes We Never Made. I hope you guys enjoyed this reading vlog and hearing what I had to say about both of these books. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, and I will hopefully see you guys in my next video. Bye!
Pull the key out the ignition, run your mouth but I never listen. You hold me back, will never last, keep talking all your shit. Wondering how all this started, you left me broken hearted. You flip my words, yeah this love hurts, keep talking all your shit.